Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, welcome to the 4th edition of the International Cluster to Cluster event organized by ARTER, Emilia-Romagna Regional Agency for Research, Innovation, Territorial Development, Internationalization and Attractiveness. My name is Lucia Sale. I'm an international expert with more than 17 years of experience in the field, having been involved in many cluster flagship initiatives at European level, and I will be the moderator of today's webinar. Before I introduce you to the topic and of course to the speakers, I would like to give the floor to Mrs. Valeria Bandini, head of the Europe and Internationalization area at ARTER, the host of the event, for a few words of welcome. Valeria, the floor is yours.
Hello, thank you very much. Good morning, all. I would like to welcome you all to the 4th edition of the International Cluster to Cluster meeting on behalf of Emilia-Romagna region and ARTER. We are at the 4th edition of our event that was conceived, in fact, 4 years ago, to allow clusters to meet, exchange, discuss, start new partnerships and collaborations. In fact, we turned quickly to the online mode from 2020. We pioneered that, and we are very keen to keep on organizing this event that is for us really very important. I don't want to take time because we have a very interesting webinar ahead. The topic is particularly relevant for us and for our clusters in Emilia-Romagna. So this is just to say we are going to have a nice time together for 1 hour and something. And I wish you all a good starting of our event and a lively discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Valeria. And starting the event, one of the themes that I have followed over the last 10 years is that of gender equality and diversity in the cluster community. And I would like to start by expressing an acknowledgement for ARTER for choosing and placing this topic at the opening of an international event, signalizing the growing importance it has in the cluster work. I think nobody can challenge or would challenge the statement that diversity is the source of sparks for innovation. Alone, if we think of the multidisciplinary teams in place at many innovative organizations. But it is more than just a diversity of educations, backgrounds, or experiences that's important. As my co-moderator and organizer of this webinar, Fabrizio Ciarmatori from ARTER, has put it in a very honest dialogue we had while preparing this event, is that diversity comes from different cultures, and the encounter between these different cultures generates, if there is a dialogue, different perspectives on problems and abilities to find solutions, and eventually enables taking better decisions. At the same time, we are at a moment where talent availability has become a real and serious challenge for the competitiveness of SMEs, of the businesses, but also for the innovation capacities in a region or a country. And therefore, the gender equality approach is a must. It is why in Europe, the Commission developed the gender equality strategy or included gender equality as an element in its SME strategy, because the availability of skilled staff or experienced managers still remains the most important problem for a quarter of European SMEs. But the SMEs have difficulties in understanding the business rationale behind gender equality. And where they do understand this, they are still challenged by the questions of how to do it in practice. So with the web talk today, we would like to learn more on the topic and get inspired from a broad range of excellent speakers representing various levels. We will start with the European perspective given by Dr. Ulla Engelmann, head of unit for Industrial Forum, Alliances and Clusters at the European Commission at DG GROW. We will have a national perspective given by Denisa Dupa, project manager responsible for the area feminization of industrial sectors at France Clusters. We will have a regional perspective given by Anders Olsson, Manager of Research and Innovation at Region Värmland in Sweden. And we will have two cluster perspectives, one from Italy, from the region Emilia-Romagna, represented by Elisabetta Braci, Cluster Manager of Service Innovation Cluster, and one from Spain through the contribution of Raquel Ortega Martinez, a European manager, project manager at Amuebla cluster in Spain as well. Being myself a person who believes in the power of the balance and who reacts, not to say complains, when seeing male-dominated panels that were for a long time standard, but fortunately we see that change is possible. I want to tell you that it was important for us to organize this talk in a gender-balanced way. Unfortunately, one of the male speakers planned to participate, Javier Roy, director of France Clusters and a great supporter of the theme, could no longer be with us today. So I thought it was important to mention this, because if we want to create the impact that we want to have, we are also aware that we have to walk the talk. And before I give the floor to Dr. Ulla Engelmann for opening the event, I have just a few words as a moderator related to the processes. Please keep your microphones and cameras turned off throughout the event, unless you are invited to turn them on. You can place questions and comments and questions to be addressed to the speakers in the chat section, and we will go back to them when opening the dialogue with the audience. And also, I would like to let you know that the event will be recorded and made available on the Arter website later. And now it is time to dive into the matter that matters to all of us. And I have the pleasure to welcome Dr. Ulla Engelmann, Head of Unit for Industrial Forum, Alliances and Clusters at the European Commission, DG GROW, for the keynote address. Ulla, the floor is yours. Ulla, the floor.
Thank you very much, Lucia, and warm welcome to all of you. And thanks also that we can have this really important discussion. And as the title said, it is very much about diversity and, of course, also gender equality. And at the European Commission, we promote sustainable balance and inclusive growth through women economic empowerment. And therefore, it is important to acknowledge the potential of women entrepreneurs, women cluster managers, women being part of the process in the economic development. And we support women entrepreneurs to overcome barriers to entrepreneurship and achieve their full potential. And therefore, this is part of the European Commission's entrepreneurship policy, which is, of course, guided by the Green Deal, the SME strategy, the new skills agenda, and the digital education action plan. And this entrepreneurship policy supports SMEs in all their life cycle and also promotes entrepreneurial education. And for this, we also have what is called the European Entrepreneurship Competence Framework, ENTERCOM. But if we look, and Lucia, you have mentioned it, the EU SME strategy for sustainable and digital Europe aims at supporting SMEs. That means women and men entrepreneurs in the transition to sustainability, digitalization, reducing regulatory burdens, and improving their opportunities to access markets and finance. And this is in accordance with the Commission Gender Equality Strategy 2025. The SME strategy emphasizes that educational and upskilling activities are essential for all SME managers and employees, with a particular focus on empowering women and girls to become founders. For this, we are running several projects on entrepreneurship education. We have also sponsored since 2016 what is called WeGate, which is a European online platform that helps to create real opportunities for women to do business, expand their network, learn from mentors and peers how to achieve their full potential. And this WeGate has been successful in raising awareness, sharing good practice, success stories, and showcasing role models. And I think for me, this is also, while now talking about it, where we should see that we get a special spotlight on cluster managers. I think for now, we might not have it yet in WeGate, but this is maybe something we can also discuss and in the panel through whether this makes sense. Of course, in order to be able also to discuss concrete facts, you need to collect data. And therefore, we are collecting data on women entrepreneurship, and the 2022 annual report on European SMEs will include a section on women entrepreneurship as part of the annual SME performance review, in which data on early stage entrepreneurial activity for women is collected on a regular basis. So this is also this kind of information which we need to collect in order to share where we are standing. And the same then also, of course, applies for clusters, because women in networks is important. We need also to have some data. We need to know where we stand, and then we can share it. So on another very topical information, because last night the European Parliament and the Council got a political agreement on the directive on improving the gender balance among non-executive directors of listed companies. This was proposed by the Commission in 2012. So it took, as you can see, quite a while to get this agreement, but last night was very timely to share this great news with you today in this webinar. This has gone through, and that means, because if we look at the statistics, we have highly qualified women, with 60% of the current university graduates being female. But nevertheless, we know that women are underrepresented in high-level positions, and that includes, of course, corporate boards, and the progress is very slow. And now only a third of members of non-executive corporate boards are women, and this is even less among executive boards. So the new directive sets a target for EU companies listed on the EU stock exchanges to accelerate the reach of a better gender balance. And it sets a share of 40% of the underrepresented sex among non-executive directors and 33% among all directors. And the companies must ensure that board appointment procedures are clear and transparent, and that applicants are assessed objectively based on their individual merits, irrespective of gender. So I think this is really a big step forward. And as the president of the European Commission said, diversity is not only a matter of fairness, it also drives growth and innovation. The business case for having more women in leadership is clear. After 10 years since the European Commission proposed this directive, it is high time we break the glass ceiling. There are plenty of women qualified for top jobs. They should be able to get them. So I stop here and look forward to our discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And, you know, this is a perfect opening into the discussion and learning to see how we can make this happen in reality. So we continue our virtual journey on cluster experiences in gender equality in France, where France Clusters, which is a network of more than 300 clusters, competitiveness polls, and related stakeholders, gathered a first insight into the topic by doing the largest exploratory work in the country. It is also probably in Europe, to understand the feminization of industrial sectors. So I have the pleasure to invite you, Denisa Dupa, project manager responsible for this area, to tell us more about your initiative and what we can learn from it. The floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Do you hear me well?
Yes.
Good, thank you. Thank you, Lucia. So I'm Denisa, and as Lucia said, I'm a project manager, and I'm working on the project called Feminization of Industrial Sector at France Clusters. the organization that animated a community of 300 clusters in France. So today I'm going to introduce to you the numerous works and achievements of French clusters on the gender equality subject. So first of all, I can start by mentioning several observations that led us to take an interest in the professional gender issues, and more particularly in the industrial sectors, because the industry is a sector on which we focus due to a stronger lack of equality, and also because of a huge difficulties concerning recruitment and also attractiveness. The first observation that we made is that even before the COVID situations, clusters were experiencing difficulties in terms of recruitment and in terms of attractiveness of industrial sectors and jobs, and as I already said, especially among women. The second observation is that women do not go into industrial jobs because many cliches remain, and it seems difficult to get rid of them, and thus women do not naturally go into these jobs and do not train themselves either. Cluster managers are concerned about being cut off from this pool of candidates that aren't interested in industries. So the question that arise are how to erase these cliches, how to improve the attractiveness of industry, etc. And finally, the third observation is that even though gender equality within industrial cluster is not perfect, we have noticed that more than half of the managers of the 300 French clusters are women. Indeed, 52% of cluster managers in France are women, and this can be interpreted as a slight paradox, I think. Thus, the will of French clusters is to try to create a dynamic within the cluster community and make things evolve by inspiring and showing them examples. But we also know that the subject of gender equality is not the core business of French clusters.
Sorry, Denisa, if I interrupted, but we can't see your slide.
Yes, it's only the introduction.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, it's good. It's good. Thank you. As I said, gender equality is not the core business of French clusters and of all clusters in general, but that's why the process of engaging and inspiring people is done in small steps. So let me introduce to you the three main actions we've done so far in French clusters. So yeah, now it's there. In 2020, the first exploratory work was conducted with the entire cluster community to measure their interests and point of view concerning gender equality. It was the first time that we tried to introduce them to the topic, and we interviewed a few women cluster leaders to get to know their point of view about the paradox we made and that I mentioned before. And this led to the production of a booklet entitled in French Femmes Capitaines de Filière, which can be translated in English by Female Sector Leaders, and which provides inspiring portraits of 16 female leaders, all concerned and aware about the lack of women in industrial sectors. And as we're not specialists on the subject, we have been surrounded, and the booklet was produced with the support of few people, like the association REF. In French, it's the Women's Economic Network, which fights for gender equality within boards of directors. And we also get the support of Agnès Pannier-Runacher, Minister of Industry at the time, and also the support of Ulla Engelmann. By the way, thank you very much for supporting this initiative. This was our first step in the subject, and it showed us that the clusters are sensitive to the issue and that they potentially have a role to play with their companies. And it was a really important report for us, that first step into the subject of gender equality. And as you can see, there is a picture of Xavier Roy giving the booklet hand to hand to the Minister of Gender Equality and her advisor in 2020. Then in December 2021, French Clusters has also initiated a trophy in the context of our annual event, the Felix Forum. These forums gathers every year the French clusters, and it's a little bit like this event today, but on a national scale. So the trophy awarded actions with impact for the feminization of industrial sectors. And this time it was the Ministry of Gender Equality that supported the initiative, which encourages and highlights the implementation and promotion of actions carried out by clusters. There were 7 participants, if I remember, who helped us to establish a first identification of existing actions within the community of clusters in France. I can give you an example of one of the cluster that applied to the trophy. It's Mécanique Vallée, the winner of the trophy. 2 main actions prove their commitment and the commitment of the companies to gender equality. So first, Mécanique Vallée has set up its own women's networks thanks to the support of a French association which promotes gender equality in industrial professions towards young girls. And they also have set up 2 interactive tools for students, parents, and also teachers in order to develop the attractiveness of the mechanical industry to young girls and boys. For instance, one of the tools is a virtual visit to the different pole of the mechanical industry. I'm going to show you quickly what it looks like. Okay, so
Denisa, only 2 minutes left.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So here is the tool. You can see all the pole in the mechanical industry, like logistic, administration, etc. Okay. So then finally, and thanks to the 7 applications submitted for the trophy during the Felix Forum, the idea of creating a toolbox, if I can say, that reference the various actions undertaken by the clusters and that we discover as we explore the subject of gender equality seemed to be relevant for us. So I continued all this exploration work by looking for more clusters that take on the subject of gender equality and the feminization of industrial sectors in order to create a useful handbook. And the handbook is soon released. And it contains good practices, actions and initiatives of clusters. There is also technical and financial partners on whom they can rely to professionalize their action, and also a list of arguments about the need to take initiative in gender equality to the feminization of industrial sectors. Sorry. And as a conclusion, I would like to say first that France Clusters does not claim to be an expert on the subject of gender equality, but gender equality is one of the things that allows us to act on the competitiveness of companies, but also on their recruitment issues, and once again, especially in industrial sectors. Equality between women and men is a way to respond to some issues that companies are facing, and it's a component that completes the range of topics that will make as we say, the new cluster, the cluster that will put people at the heart of the production system, and this includes corporate social responsibility, gender equality, diversity, etc. And after having observed, collected information, and seen the interest of the community, we want to continue what we're doing on this subject. Indeed, we just have submitted a new application to the new call for projects from the Ministry of Gender Equality entitled Actions in Favor of Economic Equality Between Women and Men. So we're finger crossed. And we also want to work on the more thematic aspects of gender equality, especially in the digital sector, where women are underrepresented also. So projects are in progress, and we keep going on that way. Thank you very much for your attention.
And thank you very much, Denisa, for sharing with us all this great work that you're doing. Very inspiring. One can see the proactive approach and attitude that you are taking towards the topic, and hope that it will also spark ideas and possibilities for collaboration in Europe. So from France, we are turning now the attention to a region, namely the region of Värmland in Sweden, represented by Anders Olsson, Manager of Research and Innovation at the regional government, and also in charge of the Smart Specialization strategy. So Anders, we would like to learn more about the approach you adopted in the region in working with clusters towards gender equality, and also in the context of the Smart Specialization strategy. So the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you, Denisa, for a very interesting presentation. So I wish that we could cooperate with the French regions as well in this topic. That would be a great opportunity for us, I think. Yes, I'm a manager of smart specialization in the organization with the name Region Värmland, but also situated in the region Värmland. So I hope you can imagine where on the earth I'm right now. I'm in Karlstad in Sweden. You're on the line between Oslo and Stockholm in Scandinavia. Oh, sorry, I want to go to the next slide there. Just some brief things about Värmland. We are a small region when it comes to the number of inhabitants, only 283,000 inhabitants, but also almost in the size of Israel, 18,000 square kilometers. And we are mainly covered by forest, and our strongest industry is therefore the forest industry. We have a long tradition with working with strong clusters, so nowadays we think they are pretty strong. We have one university, Karlstad University, and the fact is that we have a gender-divided labor market. And this is what it used to look like. We have a pulp and paper mill equipment production, for instance, in the region, where the engineers were males and the workers were males also. Today, as I said, we have a strong forest-based bioeconomy, but we also have advanced manufacturing and the steel industry, and also working with the next practice in health innovation. So now to the background why we are working with gender integration in the Värmland Smart Specialization. I think we, as an organization, are quite experienced in working with this issue. I have a number of colleagues that are especially devoted to these questions and challenges. We also have a pretty strong research group at Karlstad University on this topic. And the one trigger for us was that some civil servants at the civil platform for smart specialization, they encouraged us to take an initiative to make the smart specialization really gender integrated and the strategy as a whole. And that was back in 2014. And this is the front page of this old smart specialization strategy for us. And it's no coincidence that there are 2 female workers today in the manufacturing of the pulp and paper equipment. So we said that time, and we still claim that smart specialization should be smart ways to organize and develop existing regional assets in order to create value for users and society. And we say also that the specializations should be both about what we're good at and what we are good for. And that double purpose also goes for the gender perspective. So why gender integration? Yes, I think thanks to the smart specialization platform in civil, we became the first region of Europe to make gender analysis of our smart specialization strategy and also integrate it in all aspects. And why did we do that? Yeah, we believe that it promotes innovation, it increases the profitability and the competitiveness of the industry. It leads to regional economic growth and also meets one of our societal challenges, the gender imbalance and inequality. So what about the analysis of gender integration? In Värmland, but also in the rest of Sweden, the labor market is characterized by a high degree of gender integration, in spite of the reputation we have in Sweden to be a gender balanced nation. And the same is true for what sectors men and women choose to start business in. And we have the same problem in the academy and the university. And how did we do this integration of the gender perspective in 2014? Yeah, we used an analysis method for to bring in the gender perspective and have gender experts with us. And we use gender-based statistics with statistics for divided between men and women, for instance. And we also made a gender perspective outlook to understand, get more understanding of attitudes and traditions which apply to the different areas and sectors for smart specialization, because they differ. And also put into the gender perspective to form a more equal innovation and research climate and system environment as well. So now we have a new strategy for smart sustainable specialization. It should be valid for the years 2022 to 28. And it was actually adopted on the International Women's Day, the 8th of March this year. And I think we can say that we have a strong commitment, but also high expectations among the municipalities, at the university, among the clusters and their industry, but also in our politics. So I think we have a solid foundation now for smart specialization in there now. And the preparation for the gender integration in this strategy was about to provide an overview of the situation for women and men in the region's innovation system as a whole, and the priorities that have been set. So we also, choosing these priorities, we have the gender perspective in mind. So we not only promoted the male-dominated industry. And the strategy also aims to show the consequences the smart specializations will have for gender integration. So the gender integration perspective in smart specialization is about gender equality and as an important driving force for the development and the ability to innovate. It's what's already have been mentioned here today, that the more diverse groups tend to innovate in a better way than others that are too homogeneous. It's about taking advantage of everyone's skills, experience, and knowledge in order to increase the power of innovation, and also to identify new development areas and new markets perspectives within the areas of smart specialization. And it's also about becoming a more attractive region for talents, for capital, etc. So here are the new Värmland smart specializations, and I think you can guess which of them are more male-based and what are more on the female side, and which are perhaps more neutral when it comes to the gender perspective. And as I mentioned, we have a long tradition since over 20 years of working with the clusters and support them and try to work with their development. Now we have assigned one in each of the clusters to one in each of the smart specialization and given them the assignment to hold an open platform for developing one in each of the smart specializations. So here you can see that the logos of the different clusters, and perhaps you recognize some of them. The most well-known is perhaps the paper province. We also have introduced 6 perspectives in our smart specialization strategy. Also with a host for one on each of the perspectives, and where 2 of the clusters are hosting 2 perspectives. And we ourselves, the Region Värmland, as an organization, we are responsible for working with the gender integration perspective in all the smart specializations. We also have a long tradition of cooperation with the Karlstad University, which goes on the name and the brand, the Academy for Smart Specialization, where we also support gender research with the perspective of how that connects to innovation and industrial development and smart specialization. We have also been evaluated by the OECD that claims that this cooperation, the Academy for Smart Specialization, is a best practice when it's about the trusted strategic cooperation that has led to the research capacity being able to be systematically built up and to new and existing educations being developed. And there we also have very good examples in the gender perspective with new educations and also the research, of course. So now we are taking a step that something we formulated in 2014, that Verna wants to further develop the gender for innovation perspective in partnership with other regions in Europe. And now at the end of May, we just made an application to the Interreg Europe program with the name of the project debuting with 10 regions, including Alter, and with us, Region Värmland, as a lead partner, and then Karlstad University as the advisor partner for all of us. So thank you so much for your attention, and the word and floor to Lucia. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Anders, and thank you for being available to be with us today and share from your pioneer work. So it's such a rich pool of experiences and knowledge that you have gathered, and it would be very helpful to be able to, through collaboration with clusters, with policymakers across Europe, to create better frameworks for putting gender equality on the agenda. Thank you. Now we want to see what is happening at the cluster level, and we would like to start now first with the cluster service innovation cluster from Emilia-Romagna, Elisabetta Bracci. Great to have you here as cluster manager. And the question to you is since your cluster is embedded in a regional ecosystem, how can it reflect the regional culture related to growing, orienting, nurturing, valuing talents, of course, from a gender balanced perspective? The floor is yours, Elisabetta.
Thank you very much, Lucia, and you all for this chance. I'm Elisabetta Bracci, as you said. I'm one of the cluster managers of our region. So today I represent all my colleagues from Agri-Food, Build, Green Tech, Create, MEC, Health, and Big Data Association. And I would like to thank my colleagues Nicole Ticchi from Health and Silvia Rossi from Build for working with me on this topic. So we usually work together. We are strongly connected in order to foster our more than 700 members, to create groups, initiatives, to sustain, to reinforce our regional strategic guidelines. So our aim is not to overlap, but to reinforce our regional culture. And just let me give you a very quick background in order to deeply understand why we do something and not something else. So we work a lot on talent. We foster talent growth and gender equality, because for us, the most important thing is to foster the talent growth, even if it's a female or a male talent. For us, it's about people that we need to give opportunity to. And usually when we speak about Emilia-Romagna in Italy, we speak about the food valley and the motor valley. We are well known for food and motors, but we are also well known for the data valley. And it's quite important to mesh up all these features together in order to guide and orient, educate, attract, and retain the talent. When we speak about guide and orient, it's a very hot topic. As my colleague Denisa told before, we have a lot of cliches and we need to destroy them. If we think that here in Italy, for example, we have 21% of girls choosing STEM degrees, and on the other side, we have the double of guys. So we need to create a culture giving self-confidence to these girls in order to choose what they do prefer. If we think about, for example, a business owner that needs to find out a couple of brand new employees between 40 people, and we have only 5 girls and, for example, 35 guys, so the percentage is not in our favor. So we need to start from this point that many times is the starting point of most of the gender equality problems. And then we need to educate and work on a lifelong learning because we need people to keep in touch with innovation in any field. And then we need to attract and retain with the right purpose, salary, facility, growth prospects, but most of all with the right environment and ecosystem. And our region puts in place lots of initiatives from hours of tech labs or public funding for unemployed women or public funding for female business owners. And let's remember that in our region, 21.3% of businesses are run by women. And it's a number that is increasing year by year. So we would like to support them. And then in order to attract and retain, for example, our region, in this specific case, ARTER, that is our consortium for innovation, that today is guessing we all, the region puts in place many programs, and one of them is ITER, the International Talents Emilia-Romagna, and it's a program that wants to attract talents on 4 pillars, moving to, so come on people, setting up, so we hope you will enjoy staying in our region, living in and get involved. And so all our activities are focused on one of these 4 pillars: guide and orient, educate, attract, and retain. So let me give you just a few examples. So the first one, as we told before, is against cliches, but it's in favor of an open-minded culture. And it's Ragazze Digitali, that in English sounds like digital girls. And it's a summer camp managed by 2 universities, the Bologna University and the Modena and the Reggio University. It's made in 5 sites, and starting from the next years, these sites will be many more going out from the university and going also inside the companies and other places. So it's aimed to reduce the digital gender gap in a fun and creative way. So let's make it fun. And it's about an immersive experience for high school girls on robotics and ICT. And I do think that partnership is the key word of this diversity and gender gap fighting. And in this case, we have a partnership with a group of women that Lucia knows well, that is the European Women's Management Development International Network. And so partnership is our keyword in our daily job. And another initiatives, for example, is about the cluster that I represent, and it's about the digital talent working group that we have, that we put in place the last year, and we count 19 members, 16 companies plus 3 universities. So many brains and ideas all together in order to support our regional plan for enhancement of talent, with some initiatives that needs to be quite focused on the pillars that we saw before. And for example, our goal for this year is to develop 4 proposals in order to influence the regional initiatives and funds, with also a focus on the female talents, but in general, in order to create equality for talented people. And another example comes from the cluster MEC, and it's about Maria Cristina Gerpelli, that is not only the managing director of GEPI, but also the president of the cluster MEC. And she decided to put in place in her company an hackathon in order to meet the talent of the region. And so she decided to put in place this hackathon about sustainable polymers. And it was made in partnership obviously, with universities. And, you know, our ecosystem creates a very quick partnership, because when you decide to be a member of a cluster, it's obvious that you share the values of the open innovation and of the partnership made to increase the value of our region, of our people, of our businesses. And so it's so easy to find out partnerships. And it's about 20 female university students from STEM degrees courses, and they developed 5 projects. The most interesting thing of this project is that it's a win-win project. So on one side, the company can keep in touch with the local talents, and on the other, these girls, some of them won an internship and someone else not, but all these girls had the chance to keep in touch, to know, to feel a company reality before their degree. And they had the chance to work with not only GP managers, but also with mentors and members, experts in environmental sustainability and project development. So when we speak about talent and gender equality, it has to be a win-win project, a win-win relationship. Not only, okay, I need a talent, so let's take a woman. It's not like this. We need talents, so give something in order to receive something. And the last example, in order to respect the timing, is about the work-life balance and welfare. It's called Conciliamo. It comes from our cluster and our member Centoform. And the president, Stefano Macaferi, is also one of our board members. And it's made, obviously, in partnership with trade association, unions, and municipalities and gender equality regional councillor. So it means that when we do something that we want to be an impacting activity, we cannot do it by ourselves. That's why we need clusters and ecosystems. And the targets are 3 private companies in Emilia-Romagna, one in ICT, another in fashion, and another one in publishing, online and paper publishing. And the total budget is about 3.1 million euro from Italian public funding. And I splitted it just to say that you don't have to be an international company in order to choose the value of work-life balance and welfare. So we have 2 giant companies, but one is a small, medium business. And so that's why it's 3.1. So 100,000 euros are for one of them. And the aim was talent attraction and retention and productivity increasing. And so what did they do? Using this Italian public funding, they started with many initiatives like smart working, but 1 year before COVID, because this project started in 2019. Welfare platform, part-time contracts, summer camp for employer children, company butler in order to support people in setting free some time. And the impact of this project is about birth rate growth. And why not? We can increase the work-life balance, and on the other side, have more children and balance male and female care loading. Usually we think that a caregiver is a woman. So statistics says that. But if we create a better work-life balance, fathers and mothers will be able to take care of their children, or caregivers will be able to take care of elder people, for example. And increase female occupancy rate, welfare platform designed not on what we prefer, but on what these employees need. So which are their specific needs? So we have to work on these needs. And all this attention to others' need creates employees retention. So I do believe that clusters are ecosystems, and partnership is the key word in order to find out better ideas, to rise up the bar and increase the diversity and gender equality, working together in order to focus on talent, not on gender. So thank you very much.
I think it's us to say thank you for giving us such excellent examples from the region of Emilia-Romagna. And also thank you for choosing them in such a way to also emphasize what Ulla said in her opening speech, that it's not only the gender equality, it's also the path towards digital transition and the path to the green transition. And these were excellent examples to showcase this path. And now we are still staying at the cluster level, but as we wanted to have a very diverse input with different perspectives, I'm happy to have you with us today, Raquel Ortega Martinez, project manager with the Amuebla cluster. And knowing that Amuebla is very active in international collaborations at European level, being involved in many European projects, be they in Erasmus Plus or Interreg programs, and also a front runner when it comes to gender equality. So Raquel, can you please explain us why and how does your cluster get involved in such activities? What is its role and who are the beneficiaries? So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I will just take the two words that Elisabetta just said, partnership and collaboration, because I think in that sense our organizations are very similar. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Raquel, and I am a European Projects Manager at Amuebla, which is the business cluster association of the furniture and wood sector in the region of Murcia. We are located in the southeast of Spain. Amuebla was created in 2009 with the goal of leading and promoting initiatives. We want to help the growth of our sector. And among our main principles as a cluster, besides the promotion of Industry 4.0 and digitalization, which was our main pillar, are also the advocacy of gender equality and sustainability as the main goals for our sector moving forward. So over the last 5 years, we have been working very hard to expand our knowledge in terms of gender perspective and how we can develop and incorporate to our sector gender mainstreaming strategies that promote gender equality within the companies of our sector. So as a cluster, we do have a lot of experience in European projects, as Lucia said. We have participated in almost 20 of them from different calls over the last 8 years. Most of them, 15 in total, are Erasmus Plus projects, but we also have some projects from other calls, such as Interreg Europe, for example. We have also been the coordinators of 2 of these projects and the writers of the proposals in most of them. So why did we decide as a cluster to participate in European projects? 3 main reasons. First one, we want to bridge the gap between traditional manufacturing sectors and vet education. Second, we want to collaborate with other entities from different backgrounds to make real changes in our sector. And third, we want to mobilize SMEs to take part in European initiatives. So the way we see it, Erasmus Plus, the Erasmus Plus program, is a great starting point in European projects to address directly the needs of the sector and to build a network of contact. And then with that experience, we can move on to more complex programs that address specifically policy making, such as Interreg Europe, for example. So why did we decide to get involved in European projects related to gender and gender equality? It's twofold. The reason is twofold. First of all, the numbers speak for themselves. As you can see, the number of women working in such a traditional manufacturing sector as the wood and furniture is quite low, only 19% in Spain and 22% in the EU. And for a sector that generates an annual turnover of around 96 billion, something must be done in terms of gender equality. Representation is also important. If we don't see women in leadership roles, there's not going to be women, or they're not going to strive for that because they think they cannot place themselves in such high positions. And then if we also add these figures to the already wide gender gap in management positions, the outlook is discouraging. This picture that you can see here, we prepared for one of the European projects, And you can see the male figure and the woman figure, and the woman figure is diminishing in each one of the pictures. And that wants to symbolize that when you're reaching higher and higher leadership roles in companies, it's always harder to find women. So to try to address this situation in finding a solution to the problem of female representation on boards and in management positions in general, especially in the manufacturing sectors, we decided to embark on our first European project focused on gender equality. Women in Power was an Erasmus Plus project that we wrote and we coordinated and had as its main goal to support equality and gender balance in European boards of directors, providing women working specifically in the footwear, textile, and furniture sectors the opportunity to acquire competencies that can improve their managerial skills. So this project was a partnership of 7 organizations from Spain, Romania, Lithuania, United Kingdom, and Malta. 3 of them were clusters. The project started in 2017 and ended in 2020. After a very successful run in which we were able to create a free online and multilingual training program that was tailored specifically to cater to the necessities of a group of women that often have a very little preparation in secondary or even tertiary education, but who have a very deep knowledge of the industries in which they work. In this course, for example, we cover topics such as gender and feminism, gender policies at the workplace, motivation and goal setting, emotional intelligence, effective communication, management and leadership skills, but also career opportunities. The goal was to get more women into boardrooms first, and then into middle positions so that they can climb up higher and higher within their companies. And then we went on to our next gender equality project, Women Making Waves, which started in 2019 and just finished this past May 31st. We have just wrapping up this project. And in this case, although we were still striving for female leadership, our target group was a bit different, as we were focusing on double disadvantaged women. Who are double disadvantaged women? Well, they are young women who either they are not studying nor working, unemployed women, women with disabilities, women returning to the labor market after a long period of professional inactivity, women over 50, young women starting their professional careers, etc. And the way that we wanted to tackle the need of closing the gap between men and women in leadership positions and to contribute to increasing the number of women in leadership positions. And at the same time, we wanted to address social inclusion. So we, in the end, created a female empowerment path in 3 main steps. The first one was a training program, which pillars you can see in here in 5 modules. Then we wanted to create a leader circles mentorship methodology, which is a mentorship program in 3 sessions for women. And then the last one was to create a policymakers guide with recommendations to policymakers of how they can use what we have developed in the project, and some recommendations of what we think they can do to solve this situation. And again, all results of this project are completely free, are online, and are multilingual. In this case, this project, we had partners from Iceland, which were the coordinators, Greece, United Kingdom, and then Spain. So what's next for our cluster in terms of gender equality? Well, we want to approach gender equality with a cluster perspective. We want to use all of the experience that we have gained over the last years to help our companies, the companies that are part of our cluster, to be able to implement their own internal gender equality policies, to incorporate gender mainstreaming in their daily activities, and to empower their workers in an environment of equality and respect. How? By putting European clusters as a central tool in developing, transferring, and implementing this innovative practice to gender mainstreaming strategies in European SMEs, focusing on the critical factors for the advancement of gender inclusive industries in the EU. And hopefully we will be able to do this through the Penelope project, which right now is under evaluation by the Erasmus Plus program, and for which we hope to get funding to start working on it next year. in which we are collaborating with Lucia and also with France clusters. And we are very hopeful that we can start working on this project, that we are so very excited and committed to the project already. So this is all for my part. Thank you very much. If you have any questions or doubts, or if you want to get in contact with me, here's my email address. And thank you very much for inviting me today.
Thank you very much, Raquel, for this lovely presentation, and finger crossed for Penelope, of course. And I think it's also, let's say, an initiative that can be enlarged with the participation and sharing, a broader sharing across Europe. Maybe that's also coming back to what Ulla said at the beginning, a possibility to include all this knowledge and all these, you know, we are starting to get to know each other and to learn more about each other, but to put also this type of content and knowledge into the WeGate initiative in some way.
So I'd like really to thank all speakers for the contribution and the examples and the ideas they've shared with us. In fact, I have a couple of questions. Let's say that it is more than evident that we need a kind of political framework, a political drive, and I'm very happy about what Ulla Engelmann said. And we feel comfortable when we have the European Union and the European Commission taking care of what we take care of. So that framework is very promising for us. And in fact, I confirm what you're saying. It would be really interesting for us to have a specific focus on clusters within the WeGate initiative, because I think that cluster, and we have had valuable examples this morning, have definitely a role to play about this issue. And in fact, what's interesting for me, what I've got as an element to reflect on and to act on is the fact that in fact we have to consider the partnership dimension of anything we can do, and we have to consider the different actors that must be active. And here I come with my two questions. First, I'd like to have some more information to understand what has been the role of the public actors, creating favorable frameworks or providing fundings or anything else. Maybe this is something that all our speakers can comment on. I mean, let's see who has something to say about that. So the role of the public authorities, in fact, it was interesting to hear about the Warmland S3 and 4 framework, let's say. In Emilia-Romagna, we have as well, I mean, a focus on women and gender issues, but I mean, maybe we can say something more about that. And the second question is, I try to go quickly, is for all panelists, which are the main difficulties they have encountered in carrying out, in developing their activities and in working on this topic that is in principle evident to all, but in reality to put it into practice, I suppose it encounters obstacles, difficulties, etc. Thank you.
Thank you.
I am Paula Comonescu from Cluj cluster. We are an IT sector based association positioned in northwestern part of Romania. And today's presentations were really exciting for us as we had this like worry that it's very local, this challenge of bringing women and encouraging them to come speak, to be leaders, to make good examples. So we were afraid it's only because in the, let's say, IT sector there was mostly a male-driven sector, but I'm happy to see that it's maybe more generalized, and maybe we don't need to be afraid of the specific science behind a certain sector. So yes, our experience, we've been tackling this issue of gender equality in our activities. One example I want to give is our Cluj Innovation Days conference. It's our flagship conference. We've been organizing it for 10 years now. And I must say, I took out some numbers. So at the beginning, it was very, very hard to even find a speaker that was female, either that had the, let's say, the knowledge or was willing to stand in front of the people together with so many men and speak. But I looked at the numbers for the last couple of years, and I must say that we went above 30% of the speakers being females. For example, last year, from the 96 speakers, 33 were women, and we even had panels that were not like meant to be women panels. They just happened to be all women. So it is
Paola,
becoming
sorry to interrupt you, but is there any specific initiative that you're having within your cluster related to gender equality?
Yes, well, not specific, but all our actions have this attention paid to this item, so that it's like the air for us, you know. We are it's one of the ingredients that must always be there, and we put more and more resources into this, into finding new opportunities for women to be encouraged to become models and to show new younger girls that they can do it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Paola. Within the last 5 minutes, 1 minute each, or to the panelists, the two questions: the role of public actors providing frameworks or funding, and maybe also super important, which were the challenges that you encountered? Maybe try to wrap up in one statement from your experiences. Who would like to be the first? Raquel.
I can start if you want. In our case, we did have a lot of support from public authorities, especially from local authorities in both our projects. They have been very involved and they have supported us a lot, which has been very important to us. And in terms of difficulties, as I said before, we come from a very traditional sector, a very male-dominated sector. So sometimes it's difficult to help companies understand the actions or the steps that they must take within their companies to foster gender equality. That is something that we found a little bit when we started with our international projects, but now they are very supported. They are very interested in these kind of initiatives. And that is why we keep on working in projects related to this topic, because they are very interested.
You've broken the cultural barrier.
We are trying, but yes, at least we have made one step, which is the important part.
Thank you. Elisabetta, I see that you turned on your camera.
Yeah, we obviously have a deep support from Arthur, from the region, so nothing on it. Just one word, local. When I was in the general management of one of the biggest tobacco companies, we used to say, think global, act local. And I think that it's what we need to do. So share best practices, create a deeper network with other clusters, as today we are trying to do, share knowledge and try to adapt what we understand to our culture, to our region, to our companies or universities, so to our ecosystems. And I think that local is what we need to do more and more and more in order to learn from each other.
Thank you. Thank you. Anders.
Yes, some examples. It is mandatory to have a gender perspective for all projects that we are funding. And we're also funding specific research on gender issues. And we have also developed some tools. We are involving the actors, especially the clusters, so that they work with this perspective themselves. We are providing with gender divided statistics yearly. We have also a yearly conference with the name Genius. That's the biggest conference we have every year. And it was held the last week, actually, in Värmland. But our biggest success so far, I think, is that we have produced the material about how do we communicate in the gender balanced and the gender equal way. One thing we started yesterday, actually, we started to try to develop a new tool, which we call the Gender Equality Readiness Level tool. So we would like to do that in cooperation with you as well. That would be great. And the biggest challenge is for real changing the numbers, to get the real impact. And that's why we have so big hope to the application now in the Interreg Europe program with the debuting project as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Maybe Denisa, and then we wrap up with you, Ulla. Denisa?
Friends Clusters had a lot of support, and especially financial support from public actors such as ministries like the Ministry of Gender Equality, Ministry of Territorial Cohesion, Ministry of Industry, and also from program such as the INCT. The INCT is the Agency for Territorial Cooperation, and this actor supports the territories to carry out all their projects and to adapt to the new population needs, but also to face new challenges. And yeah, we got a lot of support from them.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Just in case we're cut, I just want to say thank you from all my heart. And I think I speak for the audience as well. But now, Ulla, the last minute is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think a lot of good initiatives, but as it was said by the colleagues, we need the support of the public actors also to scale up, because there are a lot of, let's say, good initiatives, but they need to be more mainstream, to become more part of other people's thinking. So it's also about awareness raising. And I think with the good news for the women on boards, which we had now. So let's hope that soon we have more good news also, that all your initiatives contribute to have a better participation and part of women being in clusters and women entrepreneurs boosting. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And again, thank you to the speakers, to the panelists. Thank you to the audience for being today with us. And let's keep in touch this momentum that we created today in Emilia-Romagna virtually, but hopefully there will be other opportunities to also meet in the real place, develop, strengthen the network that is about to be created, and monitor together the progress towards a common goal that we all share.